everyone just wants to feel seen, heard, and loved. It feels similar to telepathy in that it's a nonverbal knowing. I'm speaking to the structured water consciousness in the body and it tells me things. Origin point, which is sometimes still in the energetic field of ourself, could be emotional, mental, spiritual. Innate intelligence comes online and it just starts working it out. It was instant, and it really shows that we can heal all the way out, expanded our line, not just back, but also forward. My heart broke and I stopped when I was 19, and then I found yoga, and it merged those two worlds together, where I had this spiritual practice and this physical practice that I could emote through, because that's what my soul longed for. I experienced intense adrenal fatigue and complete system burnout because I was teaching like 5 classes a day on the schedule for group, and then 4 one-on-ones a day. So 9 classes a day nonstop. I didn't know I was an original gangster.
My guest today is Britt Firth, specializing in somatic release, trauma recovery, and bioenergetic craniosacral work. Britt, it's so good to see you.
Yeah, so good to see you again. It's been so long.
Yeah, I'd love to get into our story and your story at some point, but I want to jump into a question that's been lingering in my mind for so long now, and now is the perfect time to ask, I guess. I'm fascinated by these videos I'm seeing on your Instagram and online of your clients on the massage table, basically in convulsions, like something I've seen from a movie, like in Exorcism or something. Can you explain to me, please, what's going on there when you're working on them and they're going through all that?
I mean, those videos are there to catch attention for sure, in 2 parts. To normalize those kinds of movements as a way for our body to release energy that has been stored and creating tension or a lower than optimal functionality. But the broader visual is there just to invite people to feel somatically that there might be something there for them as well, because my work is unique. I guess I should start with also explaining that my work is in the scope of manual osteopathy, and there is a medical practice of doctor of osteopathy, which is similar to the allopathic model of a general practitioner. They can do surgeries, they can administer medications, they can also do the manual part that I do. And I'm in Canada, and we do the manual osteopathic practice. So it's a manual therapy technically, but we have a whole principle and belief system that the foundation of it is that there is innate intelligence in the body, and it is wired to find harmony and also to choose survival sometimes. And when it chooses survival, I become the facilitator and the listener to the story of that survival pattern, so that then I can support it in finding a mode of release or restructuring of that frequency. And that can come in the form of mechanics, of literally noticing a joint needs support, adjusting back into its most beneficial position, or what you see in that video, which is giving way to a lot of that innate intelligence, giving it a really loud voice to talk in its language of motion, of vibrating and twitching and shaking and repetitive muscle reflexive movements. And then I'm also working in the biofield, which is just the science term for the aura, where we also hold things, because my main focus is root cause release, or I prefer to call it origin point focus. So I'm trying to find the origin point, which is sometimes still in the energetic field of ourself. Could be emotional, mental, spiritual. We could be holding something for the collective, our generational line, and then it becomes more solid and turns into something in the physical. So I've got a really broad range of conversation to have with someone's body and being on the table. Some people come in because their shoulder is injured, and it was because they lifted a weight that was too heavy, something very mechanical. But my niche with my practice now is when folks don't feel well and they know there's something underlying there, that there's a story that the body wants to express, that the subconscious wants to express, and they need someone to help facilitate that. And that's what I do.
Incredible. Yeah. I've heard different perspectives on a few of the things you're talking about. Do you think it ever is just started in the physical? Like even when lifting a weight and it hurts your shoulder or something, do you even think that, or maybe getting hit by a car in some way, even something so visually physical, is it still only in the physical or is it always rooted in something deeper, in your opinion?
My short answer is yes, it's always rooted in something else. There's always an emotional and a mental story that is combined with that physical story, whether that's something that landed there as a belief because of the impact or the strain, or literally, to use your example, a motor vehicle accident. There is an impact, so there's force. Then there's the emotion that comes during that will immediately not be processed because we have to go into survival to keep ourselves safe in that moment. And then there's also the energetics. So it's going to move somewhere and it's going to, I call it crystallizing because we see it as moving through the force, but then it'll find another part of the body that it crystallizes into. And within that, the more broader conversation about the structured water of our body or the fascia is that that's where we send memories and the story or the conversation that didn't get closure from the event. So even to use your example of the shoulder injury, let's say someone lifted a weight that was too heavy in a group workout class and they thought it was okay. They lifted it, they're like, there's the pull that happened on their biceps, say. So there's a literal effect, cause and effect moment. But what were they thinking at the time of that event? Why did they choose the weight? Is there a belief of, I'm not good enough unless I keep up, that we have to process as well, just as an example? So there's more that we could uncover so that we don't repeat the lesson, the opportunity, I like to call it, as well. Yeah.
What's your view on the aura? I've heard some different perspectives on that too. There's the one of, it radiating out from you, and then there's the one that I think you were saying, which it's more like coming in and then it physicalizes from the aura. Do you have a perspective on those from your work?
Yeah. I will just touch on what you said about there always being that story with, or a belief maybe behind it, that I think it is very important in any healing work to meet the patient or the client or the person that's come to you at where they're at. And what I mean by that is we might, because we spend so much time in the field, I get messages all the time of what the subconscious belief or program or imprint is behind the scenes. But I give that innate intelligence of their own system the opportunity to tell me if it's the time and place to mention that or not, because sometimes it's not the actual step in the healing journey to say that. Now it's the step of, well, let's just let it be a physical experience of release first, because sometimes they actually need to feel a little bit quote unquote better before they can observe themselves from a different angle. And then with the aura, it's energy to matter, matter energy. It's actually an exchange. They converse with each other, where sometimes things brew in the matter part of us and then also are in the energy field. And sometimes it begins in the energy field, or you could call it the information field as well, as a different visual. And then it's there for so long, and it's kind of, think of it as festering or circling, and then it tries to get our attention through becoming a symptom in the body. So it's an exchange for me, back and forth.
Just like two-way information from the brain to the brain. I guess it's kind of similar in a certain way.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, it models this similar to our brain and body connection, or what some people call our mind body connection, our gut brain axis, even. There is the data that there's something like 70% of the information about our environment, whether it's feeling safe or threatening, comes from the gut to the brain. But there's still information going down as well. So there's a back and forth of information throughout all of our different levels, I call them.
How does the heart work its way in?
I'm of the mind that the heart is an electromagnetic field of its own, and it is not just this pumping, blood pumping organ, that we need to start seeing it more as a vortex, and it has its own way stronger electromagnetic field than our brain. And I really believe that when we consider it like that, then we can actually not close it so much and lean into it and its wisdom, because it has so much.
And the brain is probably scared of letting it have a voice sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I come from a very strong spirituality that is embedded in yoga, and in the scriptures for yoga, the mind is a big part of how we go to our mind, and we just see what is in there, what is happening, what do we believe we are, and that gives us all this information about how we can actually awaken or transform that which is causing us the most suffering. It's true.
Well, you spoke about yoga, and I guess that's how we met. You were one of the original gangsters at Moto Yoga Vancouver, Fourth and Alma. Shout out, great studio. You were like just awesome there, and that was kind of like my home studio for 10 years. So that's where I got to experience you teaching yoga for so long to large groups of probably 70 people in a hot yoga room. Very nice space. And you were just doing your thing there for quite a while. And then we crossed paths a little bit at a chronic pain clinic in Vancouver where I was working with my first mentor. And I was doing some personal training there, body work, and teaching people self-care methods to get out of pain. And you came in and you were doing some really advanced stuff that I couldn't even partake in, like handstand classes and stuff. And you were quite a superstar in that. And then what's your journey from, badass yogi to what you're doing now?
Thank you for that testimony. I didn't know I was an original gangster, but I
You
love
were.
that. Um, yeah, so I guess prior to that, I actually was a dancer for 8 years intensively, mostly classical ballet, but we had to do a broad range of different dance styles to be a well-rounded dancer. So I did jazz and modern and tap and hip hop, but classical ballet and the structure of that was always my jam. Either that or contact improv, which is an improvisation between two bodies with no words. So every time you merge together, you aren't speaking, but you're creating a dance through staying connected. And then I found yoga, and so embodiment work, like emoting and expressing and alchemizing life's experience, has always been through the body for me. It's always been a natural thing that I did, and I just loved playing with the edges of what's possible. And I think it played to my strengths, where I'm able to see things from a very broad perspective and then alchemize it into a step-by-step process where I always have a lot of innovative ideas of how to do one thing many different ways. And if it's done one way, well, we can probably do it 10 other interesting ways and attune to all different learning styles. And so I started teaching all of these advanced posture workshops because I'm very playful, so I made it very easeful and not so serious. but also brought in the opportunity for people to play with their edges and see that they're capable of so much more than they might have thought that they were. After that, I actually got scouted and was asked to support the opening of a wellness studio in Singapore. And I signed a contract and moved across the world. I'm on the other side of the world, just to give all the listeners context. I'm from Nova Scotia, so this was literally the other side of the world to live in Singapore for 2.5 years. And I ended up opening 2 wellness studios for people while I was there and stretching that side of my abilities. I really wanted to see what it was like to make the whole schedule happen for a place. I made up a bunch of different styles of classes. I worked way too much. I experienced intense adrenal fatigue and complete system burnout because I was teaching like 5 classes a day on the schedule for group and then 4 one-on-ones a day. So 9 classes a day nonstop. The work ethic in Singapore is really high strung. I tried to lean in and I learned a lot, and then I left. But what I realized was that I really liked working one-on-one with people, and I could see that I needed to dive deeper to really get into the depths that I wanted to with people beyond just getting them to stretch long enough and breathe deep enough. Not to minimize yoga, but that was what I was doing in Singapore. And so I signed up for my diploma in osteopathy. And now I've been doing that for a decade, while also teaching pranayama and asana as well.
I didn't know about your dance background with ballet and everything. Was that like a big part of your healing in general, was dance, contact improv and various forms of movement like that? Was that a lot of your own healing journey?
I think for me, I came into this life knowing that God is real and God is found everywhere. And what I mean by God is like this higher essence, this creator slash oneness that we all are connected to. I came from a non-religious family, and at the age of 5, I used to walk by this church on the way to school, and I just asked to go. And I went for years. I went to Bible camp and everything, and then I came out of it realizing, well, that was really nice, but that's not the only place that God lives. And so I had that depth of spirituality in my spirit that was already something known to me. It was part of my essence. And then I did the same thing with dance. I was 12. I was like not a spring chicken in the dance world for classical ballet. I should have been in it since I was 3 and developing it for so long. And I just walked by a dance school and I said, Mom, I want to do ballet. And I started with kids that were way younger than me. I was so much older than them, but that didn't stop me. I just danced my heart out for my whole teen years. And then it was either become a classical dancer, and I didn't have the body type for that. So either that or stop. And so my heart broke and I stopped when I was 19, and then I found yoga, and it merged those 2 worlds together, where I had this spiritual practice and this physical practice that I could emote through, because that's what my soul longed for after I stopped dancing, was there was something missing. And then I found it on my mat and I never looked back. So not much of a healing journey, but a becoming journey. And I would say my healing journey really happened when I started to face my own chronic health conditions that the allopathic medicine model deemed under the diagnosis of irritable bowel syndrome. You just have irritable bowels. And in Singapore, when I was extremely stressed and challenged, that got really bad. So I couldn't look away anymore. I had to look right at it, which I looked right at it and didn't do anything about it for years. I just tried to extract things. I did that thing that we all get stuck into for at least a tiny bit of time on our healing journey, where we get so deep in what can I take away? What's wrong with me? Why is my body not on my team? I don't know what my body's trying to say. I'm giving it everything it needs. I'm doing everything right. Why do I still not feel well? So I've lived that story that so many of my clients come in with in my own body, and I have overcome that in a huge way, in many iterations of it actually, including becoming a mother and witnessing different traumas that I held in my whole body from my imprints of childhood, and using what I do now with my clients to move through that in my own life and my own nervous system.
Did you have a good look into what's really going on there? Was there a certain way that you did that?
Yeah, so the method that you saw that looked like an exorcism on the table, that was born out of my process of becoming a mother. And there's really nothing like that first few months of maiden to motherhood, where you are now nurturing this child and you've never done that before, for all your stuff to come up. And some of that was unprocessed anger that wasn't mine, that was generational. That was the biggest one. I think that's the most exciting story of healing, so I'll share that because it was instant and it really shows that we can heal, like all the way out, expanded our line, not just back, but also forward and in present for everyone in our line of our generations, because it's all frequency and it just takes one person to break that chain and disrupt the incoherence. So for me, I noticed I was angry when my son was yelling at night and wouldn't go to sleep. And I felt into it. I had enough wherewithal to tune in. And I could tell it wasn't mine, that it was someone else in my line. Maybe my mother, but this was my nonverbal memory. So if it was her, then I'm not sure if it was for sure, because it was my nonverbal time of being under a year old that was remembering it. And I could tell it wasn't mine, and I thought, I don't want to be this. This is my default expression of parenting, but this isn't me as a parent. And so I got deep into, well, how do I release that from my own system? And I found TRE, trauma and tension release exercises. Dr. David Berceli created that, and he observed people in war-torn spaces where bombs are going off, like extreme trauma opportunity. And the children were shaking violently after they processed the stress, and adults were not. And he noticed this across cultures. And so he knew that it wasn't just one societal impression or one cultural impression, that it was a nonverbal stress relief response. And he asked the adults, why aren't you shaking? And they just simply said, we don't want the children to feel scared, that we're scared. And so it can be something as simple as that mental choice of, well, I'm going to contract against that so that it doesn't affect someone else. And I found that incredibly fascinating, and I used it to heal my own stuff. And I did one process with that, neurogenic tremoring it's called, and my son stopped screaming in the night. And when he did challenge my nervous system, when I hit my overwhelm after that, I walked out of the room and I was taking these deep breaths. And I said to my husband, I said, whoa, I have access to the step before the overwhelm and the freak out. So I've released what was held, and now there's space for what I call a choice point. And that felt so good. And so I really created this method that I call just increasing the potential of what osteopathy already believes and has set as our principles about that innate intelligence being there, and the capacity to heal being something that's already designed within you. I find that the tremoring being added and the energetic biofield work being added just accentuates the body's ability to speak to us, gives it a louder voice so that the client can actually see and feel and experience what I feel in my hands. And then they can get into it with me and get on board with it with their conscious self, not just in receiver mode, but actually participating. And that's just so potent on the healing journey. When you feel activated by it, when you feel present and in participation with it, then it's so much more powerful, I find. And that's what I've noticed time and time again, is that we're getting to a way deeper place with the results than I've ever witnessed before, and my clients have witnessed with any other care that they've received.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I think probably everyone's felt that before in their life where maybe some muscle starts twitching and spasm a little bit or something like that. That's kind of what that is, right? It's trying to release some stuff in there. So if that happens, it's like, oh, great. Like allow it to shake itself, almost like a dog shaking itself free or something, right? And so yeah, whenever that happens in my own body, I'm like, ooh, that's great. I'm just gonna let this releasing going on. So it's a really great way that the body's releasing all that stuck energy. And I guess some of the work there is finding how to remove the blockage that's holding it there. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, to speak to what you just said about, like, you have the self-awareness to attune to the fact, like, oh, my body is shifting the frequency in a muscle tissue, it's vibrating or twitching, to be able to just be the witness of it and let it run its course. I find that that's a big thing that I'm guiding folks toward, is just that first step of, oh, there is intelligence in my body. Sometimes it moves in an involuntary or organic way to just disrupt the tension that's there and get it in flow again. And a lot of the reason why we turn off, like a light switch, that side of our system that can shake and tremor or just vibrate to release stress from that area, is because socially and culturally there's stigma around it. There's taboo. Like, if we see someone shaking on the street, then they're going to receive attention from other people that they might not want. Like, oh, I don't want you to be concerned for me, or I don't want you to think I'm weird, or that I have dis-ease or mental illness. And these are just unconscious perceptions that we have because of conditioning. And so that's a big part of why we turn it off. We're really good at contracting and bracing, and less we need to relearn that we also have this ability within us to just shake stress away. We are mammals after all. And we're just turning a light switch on. Like, that's the first session with me, is we turn the light switch on and we go, ooh, interesting. Look, your body can unwind itself, and making that familiar again. And then my job as the facilitator, other than that, is that I'm tuning in to where there is other stuff that I could actually tinker around and assist in releasing, especially around the cerebral spinal fluid and tension in the dura, which is within the spinal cord, because that's where the branches of our nervous system are. So we want that to be really free, really fluid, so that the message that our body is sending to our brain is not one of stress. It's one of, okay, actually there's no perceived threat right in front of us here. And ideally to resolve the old stressors that are still looping, because those are creating a reality.
A personal experience came up there that totally resonated where I remember in my 20s, I think I was early 20s, and I was trying to be cool, right? I had like a nervous kind of leg twitch where it's my legs kind of jumping as I'm sitting, you know? And one of my friends told me at some point, he's like, yo, that's a nervous twitch, right? And I'm like, oh, really? Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, since I want to look cool, I don't want to do that, right? So then I shut that one down, and then it builds up, right? And becomes fatigue and tired and maybe pain down the road or something and just gets stuck energy, right? It stops the flow. So yeah, very funny to remember something I forgot long ago.
Yeah, that's a great example of what I'm sharing of that the pressures of the social system. It's as simple as that sometimes. It doesn't have to be this big traumatic experience, though sometimes like my method also does address that. It addresses those subtle times where we've just made ourselves a little smaller or held ourselves a little tighter in a form of protection or conformity. This is something I'm really passionate about, although what I do is really complex and there's a lot to take in about it. The main thing that I do, like beyond all the technical details, is I just hold a very specific belief system about healing and the pure potential of everyone in front of me that creates an opportunity for their entire system to also be seen in that light and not in the fix it model, for example, but in the model of anything is possible. We just have to get on board with it and use our imagination to expand there. I think more than credentials in a description of your therapist, it should say what their beliefs and biases are about healing, because that's what's actually holding you, is their beliefs and biases about what is possible for you.
I so resonate with that. And I want to add one thing to it, if I may. Another thing that I think is really key in choosing somebody to work on you in such an intimate way is who they actually are energetically and as a person themselves. So it's like, you want to look at the person and say, oh, I want what they have, and I want that good energy that they're dealing with and all that. Because I've known a lot of people that have a lot of knowledge and tools, but they're not holding good energy, or maybe they've built up so much bad energy from their clients that they no longer have an ability to transmute anything more because they're kind of almost like a full vacuum or something. What comes through their hands is no longer healing energy. Their whole system of beliefs, like you're saying, I think is very important, and their whole energetic field themselves is also another. Those two factors, I think, both would be really, really wonderful to pay attention to. And I've personally gotten myself into a lot of trouble in my life several times not following those two things in who I'm following.
Oh my gosh, 100%. Yeah, we're all at fault and we've all learned this the hard way, truly. But I do agree with you. I think a lot of people, again, back to societal structures, I think that this might feel a little bit confronting for some folks to listen to out loud, but I think it's very important for you to actually look at the person that's going to treat you, look at how they're living their life, look at how they enter the room, how they talk, all of these things when it seems like you're judging them, and just have a really good look at how they live their life and how they hold themselves. Are you inspired by that? Do you feel at ease observing it? I would go as far as to say, like, would you want their life? Because that's their frequency. So, and there's discernment there, of course. It's just about being discerning. But like, you could look at someone and you want to have a session with them because they're like traveling the world and they're living this beautiful digital nomad life, and you want that for yourself. Or maybe when you really look at that and not just their credentials, that looks like chaos to you. So do you want that person's hands on you? Maybe not, because that speaks in a chaotic way to your system. So that is so important. It's like, what is that person bringing forward? And that's one of the great things about social media right now and that's how I use it, is I use it in a way of really being completely honest and transparent. As a human, I try to get on camera as much as I can so that people can feel me, and then they'll feel a resonance or they won't. And that's how we get to utilize social media as support for others, to be able to connect with them before they come so that they can make an executive decision for their own self.
Thank you for that. Yeah. What drew you so much into one-on-one work from, like I said, the busy hot yoga studio that you were teaching week after week in big classes. And then you felt very inspired at one point after probably hitting a burnout or something, it sounds like, um, to do more one-on-one work. What is it that you love about one-on-one work?
I think I'm highly skilled in group and also highly skilled in a different way with one on one. So I am really good at being that leader that holds it down for a lot of people. I've taught classes of 500 people before, and like you said, like 50 people in class was not a strange thing at that studio that I was teaching. And so it weaves into my work now because one of my other passions beyond one-on-one work is training yoga teachers to offer touch and connection in their classes. That makes it important and of value to understand that there's an intimacy piece. Like, people want to be seen and heard and valued, and there is a way to make that happen in a group setting, but it's like a learned skill, and it's something that I do feel like I've always been really good at, is creating connection within community. But in one-on-one, my intuition gets to come out in full force. And before, the sciencey part of osteopathy was just the felt sense, or it feels similar to like telepathy in that it's a nonverbal knowing that I can't really. I always look to others who are really good at explaining things to be able to explain what I know and what I'm tapping into. But I always say that I'm speaking to the structured water consciousness in the body, and it tells me things. And it tells me a lot of deep details. And so I have a precision with my one-on-one sessions that I think is really valuable as well. But at that time, specifically, a lot of it was just that I was in poverty as a yoga teacher. And I needed a way to not burn out and also offer the quality of connection that I hold at high regard and as a core value of existence for me. So one-on-one was the natural place to go because I'm endlessly curious. So I wanted to go to osteopathy school. And also I knew that I could go that next mile with people and really dive in and help them in a more specific way.
It sounds like you like that too, like spending time over time with people and really going deeper with them. Is that right?
Yeah, quality time is so important, especially in healing. I feel like love is actually doing the healing. My beliefs, my biases, and then just my unconditional love for everyone in front of me. And then, yeah, the techniques are totally secondary. It's just that time of really feeling seen and heard. I think Brené Brown, a shame and vulnerability researcher, coined this statement of everyone just wants to feel seen, heard, and loved. And as someone who works in the realm of trauma and early childhood imprinting, we are constantly from conception wondering, do I belong here? Am I loved? Or am I going to get my needs met? And if we don't get that in that first time, then we will continue to search for it, and we will create a personality around it, a personal reality around that search. And so if I can give people that foundational truth, you are heard, you are seen, and you are loved, then that's most of the work done.
And they can relax and everything kind of takes care of itself. Is that
Yeah, the
right?
innate intelligence comes online and it just starts working it out.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. Do you miss anything about Vancouver? You like where you're at right now?
I actually just went back for a week in May, all by myself. I have a almost 5-year-old, just for context. I have only taken now 2 trips where he hasn't come at all for a whole week, and that was because this was a spiritual trip. I wanted to go back and energetically grid Vancouver for myself because I went through a lot of shadow work in Vancouver. I was in my Saturn return as well, so that late 20s time. And so I was meant to be coming up against some friction and learning, and I certainly did. And Also, my pranayama teacher is on the island, and so I wanted to go and sit with him and study, and so I did that. And I also, more of a surprise, was energetically gridding Vancouver for myself again, because I was feeling the visceral experience of walking down the same streets and what I felt when I was walking those streets before, and yeah, honoring that version of me and holding the parts that felt tender. Um, but Vancouver's changed a little bit, maybe a lot. I loved it because of the nature, like, and how accessible it was on bicycle. I'm very outdoorsy, and that there were just more alternative community things to do. And I find the West Coast to be so creative compared to the East Coast. Like, people are very in their boxes compared to the creative energy that surges through the whole West Coast from, California all the way to BC. And like, people are just extra playful. Like, they'll wear a costume to a party, or they'll like wear a wig to a dance party at a bar. Like, there's no limits to exploring like all these different archetypes of self there. And I love that about the West Coast and my friends out there. And so it was so nice to connect to everyone. And just, I mean, yoga got to the West first. And it was such a baby when I started practicing in, when was it? 2008. I started practicing yoga here. And it was one of the first and few yoga studios. And then go to the West, and like, gosh, the veins run so deep, and the spiritual practice is so deep as well. And teachers are old and inspiring because you can see what happens when you practice for so long. So I do love it out there for that, and the mountains.
I have some of those feelings from time to time too. I've been kind of digital nomading. I'm probably your example for saying what you said earlier. I've been kind of moving around and all that. Maybe some people are like, "Oh, that's cool what he's doing." Other people are like, "Oh, that's horrible." I don't know. But yeah, I have those feelings sometimes too, to go back and see my friends. And there was so much I loved there too. But I, like you, went through a real dark night of the soul at the end there. And that was kind of how I left Vancouver, in, not a very good place, to be honest. So I wonder what it would be like if I went back now. And I am intrigued to go see the people that were there and my favorite places and stuff. So I think I'm going to return in the spring for a little bit, probably. Yeah, and see how it goes. I'm interested to see. So, Britt, when you're working on people, you're saying you have all this information coming through, and fundamentally the most important thing is to see them, give them unconditional love and acceptance, and let them kind of soften into being themselves. In addition to that, you probably have quite a large bag of tricks to pull out of your hat at this point whenever you feel like it. What are those tools that you pull out a lot? There must be still a lot of yoga in your world.
I think this is a testimony to all of the healing I've done through what I offer now for my own system, like working on myself before working on others with it. I healed a lot of the story of people pleasing that I was letting run my life and my career with the method that I now offer. And I would never have been able to say what I'm about to say to you even just 3 or 4 years ago. But I think my strength as a practitioner is that there's a lot that I just take as truth and knowing that is unexplainable or within the mystery of what science can't measure yet. And I think that is one of my technical skills. And it shows up, or it showed up as this story throughout my life of, always looking to do things against the grain. Like, it was never about going to the right school that everyone wants me to go to, or that everyone sees as the school that you go to, or getting my credentials for my like continuing education credentials for yoga, I wanted to sit with people who lived it and breathed it, and I would do that before I would look to get a certification in something. I just asked to offer my time and be in service in order to absorb something that I loved and responded to. So I think that's my main skill, that I've been able to just so devotedly trust that I do know what I know and that it can lead the way because it's divinely sourced. And it's a pure transmission of, I always get audient and sentient information, and I can track what's held, whether that's a statement of a belief or story in the subconscious, when it happened, and what the emotion was with it. Or I'll feel where it is in my own body and be able to track it in theirs. So those are two things that I do that are more intuitive. And I really follow the biodynamic cranial sacral philosophy of allowing and listening and being a listener as the facilitator rather than a fixer. I don't abide by the come to me and I will fix everything for you, or you need me to fix you. I'm always guiding folks toward building enough confidence that there is something behind the scenes that's always working in here, so that they can carry on with their lives and have experiences like you said with your twitching muscle. Like, it makes me so happy when someone comes back and they say, you know, my hand just started twitching when I was making my coffee the other day. And I said, oh, I'll just let it. And then I ask them, you know, did it go off and then stop on its own? And they're like, yeah, it just, my whole arm shook for a minute and then it just stopped. I'm like, great, you just saw a whole stress process through to closure. And that's wonderful. And then I use like muscle energy techniques and mobilization techniques as well, which are classic to osteopathy. But that big part of cerebral spinal fluid, the messenger highway of the entire nervous system, that integral fluid matrix, that I listen to that a lot. I allow the body to, I call it telling its story. So it might pull me into like a fascial restriction, and I'll go really, really deep into something and I just follow it all the way to the end, because it's like the story is being told all the way to the end. And then naturally the body, when it gets to that moment, will unwind itself and get into flow again. So a lot of listening, a lot of following. That's in my one-on-one treatments, I'd say, is my techniques.
Do you ever have visuals too of the story, or is it more audio?
I will see people at different ages, and I can get pretty clear on the approximate age of like 4 or 5 years old, or your 22 weeks gestation in the womb, and I'll describe, because with visuals it's all in my consciousness, my imagination's symbolism. So it's like, take it with a grain of salt. I don't know what this means, or if I do, I'll say, this is my symbol. It looks like struggle happened, or there was a relationship with a lot of fighting. There's a lot of, like I'll see yelling, or I'll see pushing, or I'll see crying, like a little child crying, for instance, or yelling for mom, and then get a little bit of information about what the context might be. And then what I believe is happening is that I'm getting the information and then I'm getting told I have to say it out loud, because in order for it to heal, sometimes I get a yes or a no, but when I get a yes, I will say it out loud, and it's to activate a memory or an emotional response to find the closure that's needed to close the stress loop. So I just give the information, which is sometimes the daunting part for folks when they're learning to trust their intuition, is this sounds totally whack, but I'm going to say this out loud. You do have to do that. I like to see it as play. It's like, okay, this might land, this might not. And then you develop that trust point with your intuition, with your messages, and yeah, that's all I did. And then it became really, it was accurate, but then it got really strong and became part of the main tools that I use with some people when they're open to that.
I do resonate because I have similar experiences myself, and I never have heard the sign to either say it or not say it. I've always just had to try to make the judgment call myself, and it's a tough call sometimes. I don't know whether or not it's the right timing, like you were saying. How do you, I mean, I guess you hear it. I don't know. Do you have any advice for me on that one? How do I listen to that in a certain way that I know whether or not I should transmit something?
Yeah, I do have I do have things that you can do because I think it is very important for us to execute that discernment as a space holder because it's our ego can get very involved in being right or wrong or landing or not. And it can't be about that. And the only way for it to be about that is to give it to God or give it to the innate intelligence higher source of that person's healing potential and essence. So, in effect, like the same as I'm saying, there's an innate intelligence that's leading the treatment. I'm just facilitating as like a translator. That's how I see myself. So, if you go into a one on one session with people and you allow yourself to actually feel like a conduit of information rather than the giver of the information, and you drop into that state of being, then you actually ask that higher source of information that you're getting information from is, should I say this out loud? Or the alternative is, no, you don't say it out loud because what you're meant to do is actually just hold that with your unconditional love for this person in front of you. Does that make sense?
Super does. Thank you. Yeah, that's it's very helpful. I'm gonna hear it a few times back in editing and really solidify that one for myself.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll break it down a little bit more. Whenever you're getting this information coming through, the information comes through first, right? And then our consciousness is processing it as, okay, well, what does that mean and how can I attach meaning to it so that I know it's not mine? It's information I'm getting on purpose. I get the info and then I ask. I literally just say in my head, do I say this out loud? Do I need to say this out loud? And I fought it, so you can totally fight it if you're like, no, this is whack. I don't think I should say this. This is weird. Like your ego can come through in that way and have a little bit of an internal struggle, but it will keep pushing if it needs to be said, right? If it's said yes, then it will come back and it will ask to be said again. I'm sure you've experienced that. And then I usually ask again, okay, I should say this out loud? And then if I get a yes, I have to do it. So then I'll say it. But if it's a no, I immediately drop into my heart and I hold it with so much tenderness and so much love. If it is that younger version of someone, I just hold it so tenderly and I try to be so present with that feeling or that story as if it were my own, how I would want to be held or how I'd want a small child to be held through something that really impacted them. And then I usually feel a release in the body as a transference of, okay, that cleared. It just wanted to be seen.
What do you see going around right now a lot with your clients and with the people that you know? I think there's kind of almost like global shifts that are happening, right? So is there kind of one that you're recognizing in a pattern lately?
At first, like I really heavily started getting into this work and being recognized for it after the pandemic. And so I was helping people rewire the stress of that time at first, just to get forward ahead of the mental health instability that a lot of folks were feeling. And that was manifesting as simple things like digestive and sleep, all the way to existential questions of, do I even want to be in this relationship or this job anymore? None of this matters anymore. How do I digest that? Getting their nervous system to a place where it could actually be present with the reality in front of them and make big choices. And now what I'm noticing is that a lot of people miss their communities that got shattered recently or in the last few years, and tried to build up, but built up with less soul. And we, as a collective, I think we're longing for the spaces where, although we feel terrified for the vulnerability of really being seen, we do want these spaces where we do feel like we're involved in community again, where we are a participant that matters rather than just a goer, like buying a drop into a class. We're looking for these spiritual spaces, but also these places where we feel like we have impact by showing up and doing our own work, but together. Because we've been doing a lot of our work alone. We go to therapy alone, we go to class alone, we walk out alone from that class. We might have a conversation with the teacher, but we're really in and out. And I think we're all craving more. And we need more. We need more to get through this right now.
Yeah, you see that really prevalent in the blue zones, which is where people live to an abnormally long life and happy life and healthy life, right? They're really connected to each other, really connected to land, usually to spirit as well. But they have community and family. For dinner they sit with their people and they share food. And this is a daily happening where they're involved with their kids and they're working alongside their kids. Or, I was just in Greece and there's still a lot of that there, actually. It's really beautiful to see there. You see even people that are in business a lot, they work every day, all day, but they have two of their kids working in their business too. They're around, they're 15 or 12 or something, but they have a job there. They're, a server at their restaurant or something, and they're 13, but they're with their families and their wife is there too. So, yeah, it's really lacking in places like Vancouver. That's one thing I hear from all my old friends there, that there's so many people, but they're lonely in all of it. They're craving something deeper, like you're saying, they're craving some real friendship and quality time. I think that's really crucial what you're saying. And how do we find that? Because everyone knows they want it for so long now, right? It's been a while that I'm hearing that too. And how would you suggest that they go about actually finding that really good, nourishing community?
Bringing up Vancouver, I did support a few events there. And what I've noticed about community spaces is we'll go when we really want like a big cathartic release experience of, I really have to like dig deep into my healing work. Like we'll go to ceremony, or we'll even go away and do different rituals and ceremonies to do that quote unquote deeper work. But what we really need is we need the daily community. We need the space where you come no matter how you're feeling or what you're working on. It's something, there's ritual to it. It's embedded in your lifestyle. And I think that's what we don't have enough of right now. So what I'd really suggest to people is finding a place. For me, that's a yoga shala or a yoga studio where I show up and do my practice, and I contribute by, sometimes sharing in the circle at the end, or offering to clean the mats at the end, or organizing a potluck for everybody. Personally, I actually have a studio space that's both online and offline that I run. So that's my real lived task in that. And I think showing up as a mom who often has her son with her for this is also part of my participation of normalizing that. Like, there isn't a spiritual place in the West that doesn't include, or the East rather, that doesn't include your kid being able to be there, or your kids. Like you go to a yogashala in India and there are parents practicing with their kids hanging out right there. Whereas it's been so sanitized here. And so trying to really shape like what community looks like as a community space owner, that's really been my role. But I think for everyone, it's just finding a place that you really feel like you want to contribute to, that you feel like you have something valuable to share. Maybe that's just your presence and making it a routine to arrive there, all the way to probably when you really look deep, you have something to share too, whether that's just someone else is struggling there that you have some insight and experience to share with them, or being that smiling face that's always there beside the person who might be having a rough go but still shows up on their mat. There's always something, but finding a place to contribute to where we love what's happening there and we're receiving from it, but we're also able to give.
Yeah, you have that through your yoga studios for a long time now, and it's a beautiful thing. I remember that once again going back to Moto Yoga Vancouver there. It's a great community you guys had there. Really cool people. It was always fun. I came in 3 times a week or whatever, and I'd always enjoy 5 minutes with everyone and really cool people. And the parties that were once in a while were fun, and it was a flourishing community there. And your space looks beautiful. Uh, there's a part of me that's longing for that again at some point too. I'm still on this journey right now, but there is something in the background there that I'm longing for stability and to have a beautiful space like you have right now. It's stunning, no?
Yeah, thank you. Have I mean, I fought having a brick and mortar space for so long because I am a very transient person. I like to come and go. But what I realized is, and this was my aha moment with this space, is oh, well, I've signed the lease and I've started it off, but it's not just me contributing. Everyone has something to share. And I'm not the only one that's holding the walls together. And I don't have to be the only one. And that was very liberating for me in my spirit, truly, because conceptualizing it in that way and not in the, oh, well, I'm going to have to run this whole thing on my own, which was the old story for me, that really changed it, that made it possible. And it's a very humble space, but I'm just trying to remove all the barriers to a community and touch and breath-based yoga space. So there's online, a whole community on there, on-demands, courses, live streams, an exclusive podcast similar to this, where I just get to talk to people who are very interesting to me and expand imaginations of the listeners. And then in person, we have classes happening, a modest schedule, but what's included in that is a lot of pranayama, which isn't on a lot of schedules. And if you look at the limbs of yoga, asana is actually just mentioned a tiny little bit, and which is funny to say, coming from teaching asana for 15 years now and making it a whole branded identity of myself. Just noticing on the osteo table that a lot of the ways that we breathe, our breath quality is actually affecting us on all levels. And if we just breathed more, then we would reduce a lot of what ails us. And so I just dove deep into pranayama because I like the spiritual part of it and also the literal breath pattern change of it. And yeah, so we have a lot of pranayama on the schedule. We call it Breath Club, just to be cute. It's like a little club you can breathe into. And all different teachers. Like we have different backgrounds, because I think that's really important too, is just to have different renditions of the same thing so that you can find your own self in that and honor your uniqueness. Like I'm very heavy on yogic philosophy and the practice having spiritual meaning. And then we have other teachers who are counselors and just everyday people who love breath and want to teach it and see value in it for the effects that it's had on how they feel.
Take this opportunity. You're talking about your online community and your brick and mortar there. Why don't you tell people right now, how to find your studio, your community, you, what you're doing, some way to say hi to you.
Yeah. So I have an online part of the community. It's called Loving Grace. Loving Grace. And it's on lovinggrace.ca. And the memberships are quite reasonably priced. You can, if you are in Nova Scotia, you can have an online, offline, balanced membership where you can come in person and online. But for most of the listeners, likely you are going to want the online membership where you can come to all our live stream classes and access all my courses, which are yoga, asana, breath, and also nervous system based. So you can actually do a whole course called the Neuro Relief Method that I created this year that is compiled based off of everything that I teach folks in the first 3 sessions that I see them in for my osteopathy sessions, so that you have access to that in your own body in real time on demand. You can start doing that work for yourself. And then I also actually do remote treatments. The only thing about those is that if you have health insurance here in Canada, they are not covered because osteopathy isn't under telehealth. But I do one-on-one treatments, and I call it osteoenergetics. So it's my method, but through the quantum field. So we don't have to be in the same place in the same time for the treatment to be effective. It's just I'm not actually touching your body. I'm touching it through the energetic field and doing the exact same work remotely, which I've had a lot of great success with as well. It's really nice to pair that with doing the Neuro Relief Method course and getting a hang of that, and then doing a one-on-one to really tune into your own stuff, taking that broader lens and building the confidence in the work, and then coming down into a distillation of your exact needs in one-on-one care. But yeah, I'd love to have anybody who wants to come to the online space, because it's about community. It's about gathering people together, getting conversations happening between each other, and also just not feeling alone no matter where you are.
And check out your Instagram for those videos we were talking about, Breathwork.
Yeah, there's videos there of both clients and also my gracious clients that let me record them. And then also I try to show how some people move only a little bit and some people move a lot. There's a broad range of dialogue that happens from your body. And then you also see me moving as well, doing the treatment on myself. And yeah, I also teach people how to touch with yoga. So if you're a yoga teacher and you want to train in hands-on assist, I also do trainings in that. So you'll see some of that work. And you can find me at Brit.Firth as my personal osteo page, and then lovinggrace.studio on Instagram for all the studio stuff.
Incredible, thank you. And yourself, you have been such a model since the day I've met you of, health and strength and beauty. How do you keep yourself on top of it all and in such a good place like that? Honestly, what are your practices? How do you make sure you're in that kind of energy to be able to do the work you're doing?
Yeah. I think I get the question with hands-on work. Once like someone has a big release and a big clearing on the table, they'll always ask like, how do you hold people like this? This is so deep. This is so huge for me. It feels like there's such a impact happening. How are you holding that for me and for so many people? And the truth is just good energetic hygiene. I don't bring my work with me energetically or physically. I do little things like washing my hands with cold water after people and saying a prayer and imagining everything clearing from my hands. I have good boundaries with with people in my life. Just I say no when I really mean it and yes when I really mean it. And then faith, like I follow the yogic path of, I read the scripture and I follow the niyamas and the niyamas, and I believe that if I walk lightly through life, taking my footprints very mindfully, then I will make the biggest impact without the biggest negative impact of, even just closing the door lightly, like thinking about all those little ripples and acting out of love, I think really helps. So that's the first thing I thought of. Because I could say like what food I eat and what exercise I do, but if my breath practice and my meditation or my connection with my own inner self and my own higher self is not present, then none of that stuff works. I have to do my mind work and my breath work to bring my spirit into my body and remain present. I think as we heal our nervous system residue that's old, that the bigger shaking work, I do that less. I do that kind of stuff when I hit overwhelm. And yeah, I've always been someone who's done a lot of different modalities of movement. I haven't ever just done yoga. I've always done a little bit of strength training, and I'm an avid cyclist. I commute everywhere on my bike. I think being outside and just the joy of just getting on your bike and being in control of when you go and how you get there is enough in of itself a spiritual practice.
I think that's awesome, Britt. And I think that's a great place to end, to be honest. I know you have to pick up your son in a few minutes. You'll have a couple minutes to take care of him there. And yeah, it's just been so lovely to talk to you and all your wisdom. And, thank you for doing all the great work. Really inspiring and insightful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah. I feel like a lot of what I said can land very heavily if you are in your healing journey. So what I would say to anyone listening who is deep in their own path of self-discovery and feeling even down or low, like I was when I was questioning, what is my body trying to say to me, or what is going on? What do I do next? Where do I go? Is that we are here in our human bodies to play as well and explore. And if you're feeling an inkling to just explore a modality or a path of self-discovery, then to let it be playful as well, or innocent, that it doesn't have to be so serious. Like, I'm a very spiritual person, but I find spirituality can be very stuffy. It's like, follow the protocols, make sure you have an altar, make sure you practice every day, and the truth is it's always there, it's always in a feeling, it's always something that doesn't have to be so serious. It's just about you showing up with wonder and curiosity as to what could happen if you just take one more step forward. So take that step.